Move into the 4th century now. When we finished up the political section in the 3rd century, we were talking about Diocletian and his persecution, and how that persecution spread between the late 3rd into the early 4th. We also noted that some of this is driven by the paranoia of his Caesar Galerius. Right now, so we need to backtrack a little bit. Diocletian has broken the governance of the empire into east and west, with an Augustus in charge of each region and a Caesar below him. But ultimately, Diocletian's the supreme authority. Well, Galerius is the Caesar serving underneath Diocletian, and he appears to not have any sort of positive views towards Christians. And so he's kind of paranoid of what Christians are going to do to the empire, and that's kind of filtered into Diocletian's thought as well. Furthermore, the oracle of Apollo near the city of Miletus has a revelation for Diocletian during this time that he is to attack the church. There's persecutions of Christians in the army around the year 295. As much as an edict expelling Christians from the legions. He will order everyone to sacrifice to the gods or experience flogging, right, being whipped, but will eventually order executions as well. Christians are removed from government. Their books are ordered to be destroyed. They have their property taken away. 2 fires that occur in the city are blamed on Christians, much like what we might see with Nero. For Christians, many of them struggle because the years prior to Diocletian had been periods of peace. So much like the persecution of Decius in the middle of the 3rd century, where we talk about the lax and what to do about them, similar kinds of things happen as well. Some give in to the persecution, perform the sacrifices. Some flee from the empire, get as far away as they can from the different places they live. And many lapse, give up their Christianity. Diocletian gives an edict to imprison all of the Christian clergy. Now, the term clergy refers to ministers, bishops, officially recognized leaders. He will then issue another edict that Christians, even Christians in jail, must sacrifice. Right? So it's first, if you don't sacrifice, we'll throw you in jail. So, all right, I'll go to jail. All right, you're in jail, you got to sacrifice. Well, I'm not going to sacrifice, right? And so executions start as well. The cruelest persecution runs from the years of 304 to 311. Diocletian will actually kind of step down as emperor. The paranoia and all the other things kind of push him out. And Galerius will become the Augustus, but will also be the supreme authority. And of course, as you might expect, he continues the persecution. Now, Diocletian and Galerius are both in the eastern part of the empire. The western part doesn't always follow the persecution. So the persecution isn't as widespread in the western part. In the year 310, however, Galerius gets sick, and his condition continues to deteriorate throughout the year and into 311. On April 30th, in the year 311, at kind of the height of his illness, he releases the Edict of Toleration, essentially saying that Christians will be tolerated in the Roman Empire. Now, note some of the things he says. This is just a piece of it, and just parts of a piece, in a sense. So in the edict, Galerius commands, with all the laws which we have decreed for the good of the state, we have sought to restore the ancient rules and traditional discipline of the Romans. We have particularly sought to have Christians who had abandoned the faith of their ancestors return to the truth. After the promulgation of our edict ordering all to return to the ancient customs, many obeyed for fear of danger, and we were forced to punish others. But there are still many who persist on their opinions, and we are aware that they neither worship nor serve the gods, nor even their own God. Therefore, moved by our mercy to be benevolent toward all, it has seemed just to us to extend to them our pardon and allow them to be Christians once again, and once again gather in their assemblies as long as they do not interfere with public order. In return for our tolerance, Christians will be required to pray to their God for us, for the public good, and for themselves, so that the state may enjoy prosperity and they may live in peace. What stands out to you in those comments? What do you notice?
They're required to pray so that they may enjoy prosperity. So they had, it seems like some sort of faith in God.
But he's very ill, and so at this point he's willing to try anything. So we'll let you be Christians again, but you got to pray to your God, particularly for the state, meaning pray for me so I get over this illness. What else do you note in this?
Stick out to me is when it says, as long as they do not interfere with public order, which is reminding me of Jesus and that's kind of what the Pharisees said about Jesus.
Yeah, there's been this perpetual, I think, idea from people in power from the time of Jesus throughout that Christians, by virtue of them being Christians, right, or followers of Jesus in those early years, are a threat to public order. There's something threatening about being Christian to the public order, and so, right, you got to make sure that you don't interfere with the public order. But what's so threatening about Christians? I mean, today we know of people in the name of Christ from the Middle Ages on through who have taken up weapons and been violent. But that's not really the case in those early centuries. So what's threatening about these early followers of Jesus?
There's no everything that society.
Yeah, they run so counter against society that, it's even if they're not coming out and saying the Roman state is, condemned by God, by living your holy life, a lot of people feel judgment because of that, right? Feel condemnation because of that. And so they don't need to be publicly out there saying, Rome is in the hands of the devil. There's still something concerning about these people and living the lifestyle that they live. I mean, and the other thing, of course, is that they claim to follow another king, right? And so that's concerning as well, And so there's and that's a misinterpretation, right? Jesus is not the kind of king that the Romans would have thought they were talking about. But you hear somebody following another king, you think revolt is coming, right? Overthrow is coming, rebellion is coming. Anything else you notice out of this?
I understand it says that maybe they worship no God or even their own God.
Yeah, and it's almost as if Galerius wants to say, right, that Christians really, the lapsed are really what Christianity represents. Right? The people that fall away, they're not really connected to it. Right? So they don't really follow their own God, let alone our God. Anything else that sticks out to you? I'm particularly intrigued with how Galerius places the blame on everybody but himself. Right? It's their fault. We were forced to punish others. Right? It couldn't be helped. You're the empire, right? You're the emperor, right? And so we're moved by our mercy to be benevolent toward all, right? And that's why this is taking place. It's because you're sick and you're trying to find any way to get better, right? And so Galerius is trying to present himself as this kind of magnanimous, very charitable type of person when history actually says otherwise. This is what's going on in the eastern part of the Roman Empire. In the west, other things are taking place. Particularly, it has to do with a soldier named Constantine. Constantine was the son of a man named Constantius Chlorus. I'm not putting that up on the screen because you don't need to remember that. But Constantius Chlorus had been a Caesar and then an Augustus in the western part of the Roman Empire. When some things start happening, Constantine is kind of selected by the army to be the Augustus. Right? And so the army says, we want this guy. And Constantine decides to serve as Augustus, and he is going to march on Rome. He's going to take his authority. As he's making his way to Rome, he meets with imperial forces coming the opposite direction at Milvian Bridge. And something rather interesting takes place. It's not clear what that interesting thing is. There are two versions of what supposedly happened to Constantine. One is that he has a dream the night before the Battle of Milvian Bridge. And in that dream, he sees the need for him to become a Christian, to be successful. Another version is that he sees a vision, right? And so one is he's asleep, another he's awake. He sees a vision of a cross, and here's a voice saying, under this sign, conquer. Right? Both the dream and the vision, both of those stories, present it as if Constantine is told that the way for him to be successful is to accept conversion to Christianity. And so one of the things he does is put the key rho symbol on his soldiers' shields, and believing that that's going to help them protect them and help them be successful. Now, whether or not Constantine had a dream, whether or not he had a symbol, he does, or whether or not he had a vision, I should say, he does put the symbol on his officers' shields, or his soldiers' shields, and he is successful. Right? He ultimately takes control of Rome and the power in the western part of the Roman Empire. The eastern part stays under a ruler for some time, a man named Maximinus Daia. Persecution continues off and on in the eastern part under Maximinus Daia, but not much in the west, largely because Constantine has kind of converted in a sense. We'll talk more about that here in a minute. Constantine also wants to be in charge of it all. Right? He doesn't like this whole four-ruler system, and so he is he's strategically moving to take it all. One of those pieces is the Edict of Milan in 313. The Edict of Milan is an agreement from the Augustus in the west, Constantine, and the Augustus in the east to stop persecutions of Christians. So the Edict of Toleration and made Christianity a tolerated religion. The Edict of Milan ends persecution. Might not be able to read all of that. It gets kind of small. When I, Constantine Augustus, as well as I, Licinius Augustus, fortunately met near Mediolarum, the modern-day city of Milan, and were considering everything that pertained to the public welfare and security, we thought, among other things which we saw would be good for the good of the many, those regulations pertaining to the reverence of the divinity ought certainly to be made first, so that we might grant to the Christians and others full authority to observe that religion which each preferred. Whence any divinity whatsoever in the seat of the heavens may be propitious and kindly disposed to us, and all who are placed under our rule, and thus by this wholesome counsel and most upright provision, we thought to arrange that no one whatsoever should be denied the opportunity to give his heart to the observance of the Christian religion, of that religion which he should think best for himself, so that the supreme deity, to whose worship we freely yield our hearts, may show in all things his usual favor and benevolence. Therefore your worship should know that it has pleased us to remove all conditions whatsoever, which were in the rescripts formerly given to you officially, concerning the Christians, and now any one of these who wishes to observe the Christian religion may do so freely and openly without molestation. We thought it fit to commend these things most fully to your care, that you may know that we have given to those Christians free and unrestricted opportunity of religious worship. When you see that this has been granted to them by us, your worship will know that we have also conceded to other religions the right of open and free observance of their worship for the sake of the peace of our times, that each one may have free opportunity to worship as he pleases. This regulation is made that we may not seem to detract from any dignity or any religion. Now, Constantine, supposedly here, has converted to Christianity. But what's offered here in the Edict of Milan is not the establishment of Christianity as the religion of the empire. Instead, it is the tolerance of religion, right? That everyone may be freely, or that everyone may freely worship how they wish, with the express indication that Christianity is now a licensed religion, right? That Christianity can be publicly enacted.